There was a time in this country when a father was the rock of the whole family. When the man of the house got up before the sun came up, put in a hard day's work, and came home with calloused hands and a tired smile. When a father's sacrifice was not something anybody needed to talk about because it was just something a father did. But somewhere along the way, we stopped paying attention to our fathers. We stopped thanking them. We let them grow old in quiet rooms while we ran off to build our own lives. And we told ourselves they understood. We told ourselves they did not need to hear it. But what happened on that Thursday afternoon on the Family Feud stage would remind every single person in that room, and millions of viewers watching at home, that some words need to be said out loud. That the people we think are silent are often just waiting to be heard. And that sometimes the most powerful thing in the world is a daughter who finally gets to say the thing she has been holding in for 30 years. Steve Harvey had hosted thousands of Family Feud episodes over the years. He had seen families cry. He had seen families laugh. He had seen some of the most emotional moments that have ever aired on television. He thought he had seen every kind of reaction a crowd could have to a moment on his stage. Laughter, tears, screams of joy, stunned silence. Seen them all. But on this particular Thursday, Steve was about to say 3 simple words to a young woman standing at the podium. 3 words that did not seem like much on their own. 3 words that most people would not even think twice about. But when those 3 words came out of Steve's mouth, and when that young woman turned around to see what was behind her, something happened to the studio that Steve had never seen before. Not in a decade of hosting. Not ever. The crowd went silent. Completely silent. Instantly. Not the kind of silence that comes from surprise, not the kind of silence that comes from disbelief. The kind of silence that comes from witnessing something sacred. The kind of silence you only hear in churches. The kind of silence that tells you everybody in the room has stopped being strangers, and for a few minutes they have become one family, all watching the same miracle unfold. Before we get into this beautiful story that will absolutely change the way you look at your own father, please do me one quick favor right now. Hit that like button below. Smash that subscribe bell too, because stories like this one are exactly why we do what we do. Trust me, you are going to want to stay until the very end of this one. This is not a story you will forget. To understand why the crowd went silent when Steve said those 3 words, you first need to understand the young woman standing at that podium. Her name was Sarah Mitchell. She was 34 years old, a wife, a mother of 2 little boys, and a nurse in a small community hospital in rural Pennsylvania. She was also, at that very moment, the daughter of a man she had not spoken to in 15 years. Sarah had grown up in a small town in the coal country of Pennsylvania. The kind of town where everybody knows your name, where the high school football games on Friday nights were the biggest event of the week, where the men came home from the mines with black coal dust on their faces, and the women waited at the kitchen window to see them coming up the driveway. Sarah's father, a man named Tom Mitchell, had worked in those coal mines for 34 years. His father had worked the same mines, and his father before him. 3 generations of men, all of them sacrificing their bodies. All of them coming home every night too tired to play with their children, all of them keeping food on the table the only way they knew how. Tom Mitchell was not an easy man. He was quiet. He was stubborn. He had a temper when he drank, and he drank most nights after his wife, Sarah's mother, passed away from cancer when Sarah was only 7 years old. After that, Tom did the best he could. He raised Sarah and her 2 younger brothers on his own. He worked double shifts in the mine. He came home covered in black dust and soot. He fried eggs for dinner because he did not know how to cook anything else. He tried. In his own broken way, he tried. But the grief of losing his wife had put a permanent shadow on him, and Sarah, even as a little girl, had felt it. Tom never knew how to say, "I love you." He never hugged his kids. He showed up at their events sometimes, standing in the back in his work jacket, not saying much to anybody. When Sarah would come home with a good report card, Tom would nod and say, "Good." That was it. No hug, no celebration, just that one word. When Sarah made the honor roll in middle school, Tom said the same thing. "Good." When she got a scholarship offer to a small nursing school 2 hours away, Tom said, "Good." And Sarah, hungry for more from her father than she was ever going to get, had taken it as rejection. The big break between them happened when Sarah was 19 years old. She had come home from nursing school for the weekend. Tom had been drinking. They had gotten into a stupid argument about something small, something Sarah does not even remember anymore, something about the dishwasher or the thermostat, something meaningless. But Sarah had been tired, and Tom had been drunk, and they had said things to each other that neither of them meant. Sarah had told her father that he had never really been there for her. She had told him that her mother would be disappointed in how he had raised them. She had told him she could not wait to get out of that house and never come back. Tom had not said much in return. He had just sat in his recliner and stared at the wall. Sarah had slammed the front door on her way out, and she had never come back. 15 years, that is how long it had been. Sarah had graduated from nursing school. She had moved away. She had met her husband, Daniel. She had gotten married without inviting her father. She had had two beautiful little boys, Ethan and Noah, and her father had never met either of them, not once. In 15 years, Sarah had not called her father. She had not written him a letter. She had not sent him a Christmas card. She had built a whole life, and she had built it on a foundation of unresolved anger toward the man who had raised her. But something had been changing in Sarah lately. She was now a mother herself. And she understood things she had not understood at 19. She understood how hard it was to raise a child. She understood how much easier it was to mess it up than to get it right. She understood how grief could break a person. She had started waking up at night thinking about her father, wondering if he was still alive, wondering if he had changed, wondering if maybe, just maybe, she had been too hard on him all those years ago. She had tried to reach out. About 6 months ago, she had sent her father a letter. She had been sitting at her kitchen table late one night, unable to sleep, and she had just written. She had told him about his grandsons. She had told him about her life. She had apologized for the things she had said when she was 19. She had asked him if he would be willing to meet them, to meet the boys, to try again. She had sent the letter to the address of her childhood home, the address she had been avoiding for 15 years. She had sent it, and she had waited. Nothing had come back, no letter, no phone call, no email, no nothing. 3 months had gone by. Sarah had assumed that her father had got the letter and had thrown it away. She had assumed he did not want to see her, that he had moved on, that whatever chance they had once had of reconciling had passed them by. Sarah's younger brother, Kevin, had applied to Family Feud on behalf of the Mitchell family. Sarah had agreed to go. Kevin had thought it would be a fun chance to have some family time, to get Sarah together with him and her other brother Mark and their cousins, and to just do something light and joyful. Sarah had said yes because she loved her brothers, and because she needed something good in her life. She had no idea that when she walked onto that Family Feud stage, her life was about to change. She had no idea that a letter she had written 6 months ago had been read more times than she could possibly imagine, and that the man who had read it had spent those 6 months building up the courage to do something he had not done in his entire life. The Mitchell family came out onto the stage full of energy. Sarah's brother Kevin was the team captain. He was a truck driver, big guy, loud, full of jokes. Sarah's other brother Mark was a middle school teacher, quieter, more thoughtful. Their two cousins, Tyler and Jake, rounded out the team. Sarah was the heart of the group. You could see it in the way her brothers looked at her. They had missed her. She had missed them too. She saw them once a year at most. But being there on that stage, laughing with them, felt like being a kid again. Steve noticed Sarah immediately. She had a warmth about her, a kindness. She was the kind of person you wanted to be around. Steve came over during the first break and asked her about herself. Sarah told him she was a nurse. She told him she worked in a small hospital in rural Pennsylvania. She told him she had 2 little boys. Steve lit up. He loved talking about grandkids and kids. "Miss Sarah," Steve said, "what made you want to be a nurse?" Sarah thought for a moment. Something flashed across her face, a small sadness. Then she smiled. "My mother passed away from cancer when I was 7 years old," she said. "The nurses who took care of her were some of the kindest people I ever met. They made a terrible time a little less terrible. I decided then that I was going to grow up and be like them." Steve nodded slowly. "That is a beautiful reason, sweetheart. Your mama would be proud of you." Sarah's eyes teared up. She nodded. She looked down at the podium for a moment. Steve did not push. He just patted her hand and moved on. But he had seen something. He had seen the kind of unresolved grief that sits in a person's heart for years and years. He recognized it. He had seen it 1,000 times on this stage. The game moved along. Sarah's family was doing well. They were tied with the other family, the Callahan family from Ohio. It was a good game, tight, back and forth. The audience was enjoying themselves. Then in the middle of the 3rd round, something happened that seemed small but turned out to be the beginning of everything. Steve was reading a question. "Name something a father might keep that reminds him of his children." The answers came in fast. Pictures. Art projects, sports trophies, old report cards, all good answers, all on the board. The last answer was the one that stumped them. Kevin, Sarah's brother, had buzzed in. He said, "Old letters." Steve turned to the board. The board turned around. Old letters was not on the board, but Steve paused. He looked at the board for a long second. Then he looked at Kevin. Something about the way Kevin had said it made him pause. "Kevin," Steve said, "old letters, that is a good answer." "Why did you say old letters?" Kevin shrugged a little. He was not expecting the question. He rubbed the back of his neck. "I do not know, Mr. Harvey. I guess because my dad was a quiet guy. He did not talk much, but he always kept every letter my sister ever sent him when she was away at college. I was cleaning out some stuff at his house a few years ago. I saw the stack, every single one, tied up with a rubber band in his top dresser drawer." Sarah's whole body went still. Her face went white. She turned and stared at her brother. "Kevin," she said, her voice was small. "Kevin, what did you just say?" Kevin looked at her. He had not meant to say anything that would upset her. "Sarah," he said, I was just telling the story." "Every letter," Sarah said. "He kept every letter I sent him when I was in nursing school." Kevin nodded. "Sarah, I assumed you knew." "I did not know," Sarah said quietly. "I did not know." The audience was watching the whole exchange now. Steve was watching too. He could tell something was happening, something the audience did not quite understand yet, but he could feel the weight of it. He stepped back and gave Sarah a moment. Sarah took a breath. She pulled herself together, but her hands were shaking on the podium. She gave a small smile to Steve. "I am sorry, Mr. Harvey," she said. I have not seen my father in 15 years. I did not know he had kept those letters. I wrote them when I was 18 and 19. I was homesick. I thought he never read them." Steve's face softened, the kind of soft that comes from a man who has been a father himself for a long time. "Miss Sarah," he said, "that man has read those letters, and he has read them more times than you will ever know. Fathers are not good at saying things, sweetheart, but we feel them. We feel all of them." Sarah nodded. She was trying not to cry. Her brother Kevin put his arm around her shoulder. The game kept going. Sarah was trying to focus. She was getting some answers right, but her mind was clearly somewhere else, clearly back home, clearly thinking about a stack of letters tied up with a rubber band in a top dresser drawer, a father who had never said the words, a father who might have been saying them in his own quiet way all along. The fifth round came. Sarah stepped up to the podium for the head-to-head. Steve read the question. It was a good one. About things people do on their way to a big event. Sarah buzzed in fast. She got the #1 answer. Her family cheered. They had won the main game. They were going to fast money for $20,000. Steve waited for the applause to die down. He looked at Sarah. He was about to tell her she was going to fast money. He was about to set up the next segment. He had his whole script in his head. But then the young producer walked out from the wings. The same kind of walk that producers always do when something important is about to happen. Quiet, quick, purposeful. She walked up to Steve and leaned in close. She whispered something in his ear. Steve's eyes went wide. He looked at her. He asked her to repeat it. She did. Steve put his hand over his mouth. Then he nodded slowly. He turned back to Sarah. The audience could tell something was happening. The studio started to get very quiet. Steve walked over to Sarah at her podium. He stood right in front of her. He took her hand in his. His voice was soft, steady, like he was telling her something he wanted her to hear very carefully. "Miss Sarah," he said, "listen to me. I need you to do something." Sarah looked at him, confused. "Okay, Mr. Harvey." Steve held her hand a little tighter. His own eyes were starting to well up, but he kept his voice steady. "Sarah," he said, "look behind you." 3 words, that was all, just 3 words. The audience went completely silent, instantly. Not because they had seen anything yet, but because something in the way Steve had said those 3 words had made 200 people stop breathing at the same time. Something in his voice, something in his eyes. The audience knew in their bones that something sacred was about to happen, something bigger than a game show. Sarah looked at Steve. She tried to process what he had just said. Her brain was not working right. "Mr. Harvey," she said. "I do not understand." Steve just nodded at her slowly. He repeated the 3 words, more gently this time, almost a whisper. "Sarah, honey, look behind you." Sarah took a shaky breath. She turned around. Standing about 15 feet behind her, right in the middle of the stage, where nobody had been just a minute ago, was a man, an older man, maybe 70 years old. He was tall, broad-shouldered. He had hands the size of dinner plates and a face weathered by decades of hard work. He was wearing a simple button-up flannel shirt tucked into khaki pants. His hair was mostly gray now, with a few stubborn, dark strands. He was clutching something in his hands, a stack of letters, tied with a rubber band. It was Sarah's father, Tom Mitchell. The man she had not seen in 15 years, the man she had assumed had thrown away her letter, the man she had built a whole life of anger around. He was crying. Tears were rolling down his weathered face. His chin was trembling. His broad shoulders were shaking. He was holding those letters like they were the most precious thing on earth. He was looking at his daughter, and he was waiting. Sarah's legs went out from under her. Her brother Kevin caught her. Her other brother Mark was already crying. The audience had not made a single sound. 200 people, complete silence. Every single person in that studio was witnessing something they would tell their grandchildren about. For what felt like an eternity but was probably only about 10 seconds, nobody on that stage moved. Sarah was being held up by her brother. Her father was standing 15 feet away, clutching the letters, not daring to take a step. He was waiting for her. He was leaving it up to her. Steve stepped back. He did not say anything. He did not move. He was just standing at the edge of the action, letting it breathe, letting it happen. His own eyes were full of tears. But he knew this was not his moment. This was theirs. Sarah took a shaky step forward, then another, then another. Her brother Kevin stayed right behind her, ready to catch her if she fell. She was walking toward her father with small, careful steps, like a woman walking toward a ghost. Tom Mitchell did not move. He just stood there, holding the letters, watching his daughter come to him. His whole body was shaking. He was not a man who cried. In 50 years of his adult life, he had maybe cried in private a handful of times. He had never cried in public. He had never let anybody see him break down, but he was breaking now, in front of 200 strangers, in front of the cameras, in front of the whole world. Sarah stopped about 3 feet away from him. She looked at him, really looked at him. She had not seen her father's face in 15 years. He had aged more than she had expected. There were lines on his face that had not been there before. His hair was grayer, he was thinner. The years had been hard on him. She could see it. She could see every mile he had walked without her. "Dad," she whispered. The first word she had said to him in 15 years, one small syllable, one small word, and it broke both of them. Tom's shoulders collapsed forward. He dropped to one knee right there on the stage. The letters fell from his hands. They scattered on the floor. He did not even notice. He was looking up at his daughter, through the tears, through the years, through the grief he had carried alone for a decade and a half. "Sarah," he said. His voice was hoarse, weak, like he had not used it in a long time. "Sarah, baby, I am so sorry." Sarah fell to her knees in front of him. They were now both on the ground, just a father and a daughter, on the stage of a television show, wrapped in a silence that 200 people were holding around them like a blanket. She reached out and touched his face. He flinched slightly, like he was not used to being touched, like he had not been touched with love in a long, long time. "I got your letter," he said. "Sarah, I got it. I read it 100 times. Sarah was crying now, too. She could barely speak. "Why did you not write back, Daddy? Why did you not call me?" Tom closed his eyes. He took a shaky breath. "Sarah, I did not know what to say. I sat at that kitchen table every night for 3 weeks trying to write you back. I would start the letter. I would crumple it up. I would throw it away. I am not good with words, baby. I have never been good with words. I have spent my whole life being not good with words. And I thought if I could just, I thought I had to wait. I had to find the right way. I did not want to mess it up. I did not want to lose you again." Sarah shook her head. "Dad, there was no wrong way. I just wanted to hear from you. I just wanted to know you still cared." Tom reached out with his big, weathered hand. He touched his daughter's face, gently, like he was touching something holy. "Sarah, I have cared every single day for 15 years. I have kept every letter you ever sent me when you were in school. I have read them every Sunday night, every Sunday for 15 years. I would sit at that kitchen table, and I would read your letters, and I would pray for you, even when I could not write back, even when I was too much of a coward to pick up the phone. I was there, in that kitchen. Every Sunday, reading the words my daughter wrote when she was a girl, and wishing I could turn back time." Sarah collapsed into her father's arms. He was still on one knee. She was now on both of hers. He wrapped those big arms around her. The arms that had worked in the coal mines for 34 years. The arms that had carried her up the stairs when she was a little girl. The arms that had not held her in 15 years. The young producer who had brought Tom to the stage stepped forward. She was crying too. Her name was Melissa. She had been coordinating the whole thing for months. She walked over to where Steve was standing. She handed him a small piece of paper. Steve cleared his throat. He stepped forward carefully, not wanting to interrupt the moment. "Ladies and gentlemen," Steve said softly, "I need to tell you something so you understand what you just saw." Steve's voice was still shaky, but he tried to get through it. "6 months ago," Steve said, "Sarah wrote a letter to her father. She did not hear back. She assumed he had not read it. She assumed he did not care. What she did not know was that her father had read that letter the day it arrived. And he had read it every single night since, for 6 months. He wanted to write back, he wanted to call, but he was a man who had never known how to say the words, and he was terrified of losing her again." Steve paused. He looked at Tom and Sarah, still wrapped in each other's arms on the floor. "About 4 months ago," Steve continued, "Tom found out that his son Kevin had applied to be on Family Feud. Tom called us himself. He picked up the phone. He called our production office. He told us his story. He told us about the letter. He told us he needed help. He said he was not smart enough. He was not educated enough. He did not have the right words, but he had to do something. He had to reach his daughter, and he had 4 months to figure out how." The audience gasped. Sarah pulled back from her father. She looked at him. "Daddy, you did this?" Tom nodded. His chin was still trembling. "Baby, I have been planning this for 4 months. I did not know if you would come. I did not know if you would still be angry. I have been terrified every single day. But I could not let another year pass. I could not. I just could not." Sarah buried her face in her father's chest. The audience was openly weeping now, all of them, every single one. Kevin and Mark had come up to the stage. They knelt down beside their father and their sister. The Mitchell family, all 4 of them, were now on the floor of the Family Feud stage, holding each other, after 15 years of silence, after a lifetime of unspoken love. They were finally all in the same room again. Steve Harvey halted the taping for the day. He told both families that everybody was going to be flown back for a future episode. Nobody was going to lose money. Nobody was going to lose anything. He told them that what had just happened was bigger than any game show. The Callahan family from Ohio, the other family on stage, was crying too. The father of the Callahan family came over to Tom Mitchell. He shook his hand. He told him that he had been estranged from his own son for 8 years, and that watching this moment had decided something for him. He was going to call his son that night, that very night. He was not going to wait another day. The episode aired 10 days later. The network had decided to dedicate a full hour-long special to the story. They called it Look Behind You. Within 24 hours of the episode airing, the clip of Sarah turning around had been shared on social media over 100 million times. It became the most viewed clip in the history of Family Feud. News stations across the country ran features on it. Morning shows interviewed therapists about family estrangement. Late-night talk shows played the clip and just let the audience watch in silence. Nobody made any jokes about it. Nobody cracked on it. It was the kind of moment that everybody agreed should just be left alone. But the real impact came from something nobody at the show could have predicted. Within 48 hours of the episode airing, a movement started online. People started sharing stories of their own estranged family members, fathers who had lost touch with daughters, sons who had not spoken to their mothers, siblings who had been silent for decades. The hashtag Look Behind You trended for almost 3 weeks straight. Thousands of families reached out to each other. Some of those reconciliations happened through phone calls. Some happened through letters. Some happened through surprise visits. Some of them worked out. Not all of them did, but the try was happening all over the country. Therapists reported that their phone lines lit up with new clients, specifically with adult children and parents seeking family therapy. Several therapists gave interviews saying they had never seen anything like it. They said the Family Feud episode had done more for family reconciliation in 1 week than they had seen in their entire careers combined. Steve Harvey used his platform to direct the attention somewhere useful. Within a month of the episode airing, he had partnered with several family counseling organizations to offer free therapy sessions to estranged families. He called it the Mitchell Initiative, named after the family that had started it all. Within its first year, the Mitchell Initiative provided free family counseling to over 5,000 families across the country. Some of them reunited. Some of them did not. But all of them got a chance. All of them got a start. Sarah and Tom back home in Pennsylvania took it slow. They did not rush anything. They started with phone calls, once a week, then twice a week, then every day. Sarah drove her sons, Ethan and Noah, up to the old house for their first visit. Tom met his grandsons for the first time in his kitchen. He knelt down on the linoleum floor. He was too old and too stiff for that, but he did it anyway. He hugged both boys. And both boys, sensing something important, hugged him right back. Tom made them fried eggs, the same meal he had made for his own kids when they were growing up. Ethan and Noah thought fried eggs were amazing. They had never had them before. Tom smiled for the first time in 15 years, a real smile, the kind of smile that reaches the eyes. Sarah took a picture of her father with her sons at the kitchen table. She sent it to her brothers. Both of her brothers cried when they saw it. Tom retired from the coal mines 6 months after that Family Feud episode. His body had been telling him for years that it was time, but he had been holding on because he did not know what else to do with himself. After reconnecting with Sarah, he finally had a reason to stop. He started driving up to Sarah's house every other weekend. He would help Daniel, Sarah's husband, with projects around the house. He would take the boys fishing. He would read them bedtime stories. Stories about the old days, about the mines, about his own father and grandfather. Sarah's sons began to know their grandfather, really know him. Tom taught them how to work with their hands. He taught them how to tie knots. He taught them how to fix things. He taught them how to be quiet when the moment called for it. He was not going to be a perfect grandfather. He was too old and too set in his ways for that. But he was going to be a present grandfather, and for the boys, that was enough. More than enough. Tom lived for another 9 years after that Family Feud episode, 9 years of making up for 15. He saw Ethan start middle school. He saw Noah learn to ride a bike without training wheels. He saw Sarah celebrate her 40th birthday. He was there for his sons Kevin and Mark, too. He became the father he had never known how to be, not perfect, not without mistakes, but there, finally there. When Tom passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 79, Sarah was with him. She had been at his bedside for the last 3 days, holding his hand, reading his own letters back to him, the ones he had kept in his top dresser drawer, the ones he had read every Sunday for 15 years. Sarah read them to him in his final hours, the words her 18-year-old self had written. The words that had kept her father alive through a decade and a half of silence. He passed with a small smile on his face, and Sarah, sitting beside him, understood for the first time that he had always heard her. He had always heard her. At his funeral, Sarah gave the eulogy. She talked about a man who had not known how to say the words. She talked about a stack of letters tied with a rubber band. She talked about a father who had picked up the phone and called a television show because he did not know what else to do. And she ended her eulogy with words that would become quoted all over social media the next day. She said, "The people we think are silent are often just waiting to be heard, and the people we think have forgotten us are often the ones who remember us best. Call the person you have been avoiding. They might be waiting by the phone. They might have been waiting your whole life." That is the legacy. That is the story. A quiet man from the coal country of Pennsylvania. A daughter who had built her whole life on unresolved anger. A stack of letters in a top dresser drawer. A television host who knew exactly when to stop hosting and start listening. And 3 simple words that made a whole studio go silent. If this story moved you the way it moved me, please do me a favor right now. Hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already. And share this video with somebody who needs to hear this message. And then when you are done watching, do me one more favor. Pick up your phone, call somebody you have been avoiding, call somebody you have been meaning to reach out to. Call a parent, call a child, call a sibling, call anybody, because somewhere out there somebody might be sitting in a quiet kitchen, reading your old letters, waiting for you to come back. Thank you for watching. And remember, you never know what is behind you until you turn around and look.